Okay. Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. My name is Ajay Kapoor, and I'm a teacher at Hotel School The Hague, and I'm your moderator for the session, the Leaders Panel. We'll talk about transformative hospitality. We'll talk about the major transformations that we see in hospitality in our beloved industry, and we'll try to get the perspective of the leaders on those changes and what they expect to the future and how they manage it in their role as leaders. Before we start, I would like to ask each of you to shortly introduce yourself. Billy, could I start with you?
Sure. Hi, my name is Billy. I'm the CEO of the Zine Group. Zine Group is the parent company of Eden Hotels, which is a 75-year-old Dutch hotel group. The group was purchased about a year ago by an American group, and I joined the group around the same time, and we are embarking in plans and kind of reinventing our existing portfolio and hopefully growing in the future.
All right, thank you. Rob.
Hi, my name is Bram van der Hoek. I'm the CEO for Circle Collection. We're a hospitality brand, home-based here in Amsterdam. We're a very much design-led and hotel experience-led company for the modern traveler. And we're out there with 14 locations throughout Europe, working with 1,000 people around me to run the daily business.
Thank you, Bram. Alex.
Thanks, AJ. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alex Dadak. I run the development function for Rosewood Hotel Group for Europe. For those of you that are not familiar with Rosewood, we play very much in the ultra-luxury space. It's a Hong Kong-based company, privately owned. We have 30 operating hotels today globally, another 30 plus under construction globally, and of those 30 open, 5 are here in Europe, and another 9 in Europe. So we're very, very much focused on expanding the footprint in this part of the world.
Thank you, Alex. So we'll talk about a few topics today. The first topic we'll talk about is changing guest expectations. So are there things that you see that have changed, maybe post-COVID, and possible changes you also see sustaining into the future from the behaviors and the needs from guests? So maybe I could start off with Alex. What's your perception?
Sure. I mean, we're largely a North American business when it comes to our guest profile, and what we're seeing particularly with that market is that they're traveling less now, but they're traveling for longer, and they're also looking to experience not one destination, but 2 or 3 or 4 destinations when they travel, so it's multi-property, multi-experience travel. So that's particularly something we're seeing in this part of the world. And I think the other thing that we've seen post-COVID, which is fantastic, is the real bounce back in hotel food and beverage. Hotel food and beverage was always a bit of a sensitive topic, I think, over the years, but we've seen that really come back with a vengeance and doing very, very well, whether it's our bars in London, whether it's the restaurants in Paris. Hotel food and beverage is now cool once again, and certainly our clients are really, really enjoying and taking advantage of those facilities.
Okay, that's good to hear. And I know that you have a lot of resorts as well. Are there specific things you see in the resorts coming back?
We are. So we're seeing multi-generational travel as well. So going with the grandparents, the grandchildren, obviously the larger family units, again, making use of those different facilities on offer, looking for sense of place travel, looking for meaningful experiences, really looking for things that they can share with their parents, share with their children, and take that home with them and keep those memories for life. So it's multi-generational and also, again, multi-experiential travel.
Yeah, so I would say more purposeful travel in that regard. Yeah, okay, interesting to know. Bram, from your perspective, what do you see?
Yeah, I think in general, I mean, if we talk about guest experiences, and desires, I think the whole world changed, right? We came after, a very difficult period, in our industry, and still, I mean, the world is wild. We have the wars, we have basically all natural disasters, cost of living, diversity. There are so many things, on the list, and this also has an impact not just on our people, but also on our audience. So guest expectations are changing, and I think it's going in a deeper layer, so way more personalized. I think that's the desire of the guests, and also to make it more inclusive, so to say. So maybe a more democratic approach, to.
Could you explain that democratic approach you're talking about? What do you mean with that?
Well, I think in the past, if we start to talk about, luxury, we're not actually solely luxury, as you probably know. We have our brand, Max Brown Hotels, Sir Hotels, but we do have, five-star properties as well. And but I think the essence of, the whole experience, in general, I think it needs to be more inclusive, so to say. And I think this is also, what our guests are way more aware. So not, to keep it for maybe like a small part of your guests. In our world, always talk about, VIPs, but I think to make it more generic and that everyone is inclusive in this whole experience.
Yeah. So you make it more personalized, the way the guest wants it.
Right.
The guest might be more demanding as well, as part of democracy.
I wouldn't say you're more demanding because often people think, if it comes to experiences, it often has to do with, something that's more expensive. But I think it's way more in, to keep things also sometimes simple. One of my best experiences in our places is one time I was in one of my places in Sir Adam, and I was sitting there in the lobby, and a young couple arrived with a child, I think 3-4 years old, and the host actually was rooming the guests with the child on the shoulder, to the room. And I think this is very simple. But it's not as simple, as it is in our industry, because obviously you need to empower your staff and that they feel the freedom to do so, right? And I think these are little things, if it's that can make really the difference and can make really, a kickstart of a memorable stay.
Yeah. So really, the guest staff interaction can make the difference there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely. We'll talk about that later on as well. Billy, how do you look at changing guest expectations?
Yeah, I think, to look where expectations are going, you got to kind of take a step back and see what's happened in our industry in the past kind of 10, 20 years, right? Where, everything moved to kind of experience-led hotels, food and beverage, activating hotels. And that remains a very important part of our space, right? But if I look at what we've gone through in recent years, I think using the word simple is great, right? I think, first of all, you can't get away without getting the basics right.
Okay.
You got to provide a place that's safe, that's comfortable, a place that allows people to create their own experience. So I think kind of that back to basic is absolutely critical, because if you don't get that right nowadays, nothing matters. I also think, there's been a big shift in the way consumers look at travel, right? It was already a very emotional purchase for most people, but it's become that much more of an emotional purchase, right? It's, people when they travel, they want it to be meaningful. And if we're just talking in the context of hotels, right, where, historically you had a customer that was a Marriott customer, or a customer that only stayed in a lifestyle hotel, and people who didn't like to spend money in the hotel rooms, people that stretched their budget for hotel rooms. I think now customers are kind of reassessing, what role they want a hotel to play every time they travel. And that's very important in understanding our audience, right? And understanding that, a customer now can educate himself easily enough through the internet, obviously, and social media, to decide whether, when he comes to Amsterdam, if he wants to stay and stretch his budget and stay somewhere like the Rosewood, which obviously will be the market leader, I believe, in terms of rate, or a very cool hotel like what Bram has delivered in Amsterdam, or if they just want a great, comfortable bed to sleep in and want to spend their budget somewhere else.
Yeah. So you're saying that you're saying that the circumstances in which the customer travels actually decides also on what kind of product, in this case, what kind of hotel they would want.
Yeah, I just think the consumer, and I'd invite all of you guys to think about the way you've been spending or your friends have been spending, are just a lot more thoughtful about what role do they want a hotel to play when they're traveling, whether it's for leisure or business, and that it probably varies a lot more than it used to.
Yeah, I can see that as well. Maybe in that regard also, we're talking about what role hospitality plays as well, because you were talking about going back to basics. for the hotel room. If you do talk about hospitality, do we see changes in the definition of hospitality? Is there anything in that regard that you recognize? Because I think you're kind of leading towards that.
I mean, the word hospitality is a big word, right? So it's trying to capture a whole lot. Again, if I go back to the sentiment that the starting point is you have to get the basics right. I think in recent years, too many hotels have been adding on bells and whistles to their hotels without doing it in a meaningful way. And I think whatever you do in a hotel, you need to be able to do it well. If not, don't do it at all, especially when you talk about city center travel where just everything is at your fingertips anyway. In terms of hospitality, again, right, I think what probably was viewed, and apologies, this is a terrible stereotype, kind of as your old school, kind of prescribed American type of hospitality. Good morning, sir, welcome to wherever you're staying, that never quite felt genuine, but kind of worked before. I think going back to the moment of kind of putting a kid on your shoulder, right? We know now, all of us, that we need to be hiring people and we need to be able to train them in a way where they can be themselves and let their personality spark, because at the end of the day, that's what the guest wants as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I see you nodding. Bram, would you like to add on that?
No, I agreed. I strongly believe in empowerment. To rather than to in the old days, working on policies, but give them a framework and let them be themselves. Our staff, and when they're really genuine and you really know and understand it comes from the heart, and I think that's really valuable.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so the authenticity as well is important there.
Absolutely, yeah. And this has always been, very important when we actually started to build our brands, to be authentic and to be really creative and really be passionate, in the inner interest of our guests. But I think now, with all the changes, what's going on in the past years, I think it's really time. There's so many things to think about. What I just mentioned about all the issues in the world. Understanding also, your audience, understanding also your own talent, We briefly spoke about in the introduction about the Generation Z and being prepared for Generation Alpha.
Yep.
They're
coming up, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it keeps on changing. We've seen this trend on meaningful experiences already for a while, I think. And I think many of the hotel chains actually really adapt to that well. How is that in the ultra luxury segment?
I mean, I think there's really two mantras that we talk about at Rosewood. One is sense of place, which is basically so when our guests stay in Amsterdam, they know they're in Amsterdam. When they stay in London, they know they're in London. So we're very much not a copy paste or a cookie cutter brand. Each destination is bespoke. Each hotel is bespoke. And in that way also, we're looking to convey a meaningful experience in terms of promoting the best of those destinations, the best of what that destination has to offer to our guests. And equally, as a brand, we're also looking then to promote the best of what we offer to the community as well. So we like to open our hotels to be a hub for the local community. It's not a fortress of exclusive luxury where you're afraid you walk in the front door and you walk straight out again. So I think meaningful hospitality goes both ways. It's what we give to our guests, our team members as well, obviously our owners as my client, but it's also about what we give back to the community. And I think that meaningful dialogue is quite key.
Yeah, so including the local community as well can be done in different forms, of course, the guest. But another very important local community is the employee, right? So I believe that there's, in this time of shortage of staff, all of you are trying to find ways to attract and retain staff. Maybe Billy, you want to say something about how you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to admit to ourselves that we've, even though it hurts our financial model, right? We haven't been an industry that has paid people well enough historically. Working in hotels is hard. You can't hide behind a computer. You gotta stand on your feet all day. You gotta smile at guests no matter what's happening in your life, and these are hard jobs. In our business at Zine Group, whenever we're building a brand, whenever we're thinking about anything, we're thinking about the employee before we're thinking about the guest. Because if we can create an environment where people are happy to work, typically everything else will kind of take care of itself. You know, it's no secret that as an industry, we have to work a lot harder as hotel owners and operators than we have historically to, you know, not only attract talent, but provide an environment that feels like a great place to work.
Okay.
And very selfishly, right, we do that, and we should do that, because ultimately our businesses will benefit from it.
Obviously, the employee is a very important part within the model. But do you have examples of how you do this? Because it sounds good as you explain it, but I'm curious about maybe some examples of how this works.
You know, if I look at our group specifically, right, we have this great weapon that we're wrapped in this 75-year-old history, right? There's a warmth to the group that kind of filters down through our hotel. And actually, you know, if I look, even though we had our own challenges last year when business ramped up again and everybody was scrambling for staff, I think overall, our staffing issues have been a lot less violent than some other industries where people just come and go, right? There's a lot of loyal employees in our business, and that's, you know, that's not credit to me, that's credit to kind of 3 generations of a business and kind of filtering kind of that care in people. With that said, right, that only gets you so far, right? We're continuously looking about how we can do more. I'll give you a random example, which I'm sure you will face if you haven't yet, and that you face. You know, we have 6 hotels in Amsterdam. We have about almost 1,000 rooms in Amsterdam. Forget trying to find people to work at the hotels. They can't find places to live.
Yeah.
Right? You know, this has become an impossible place for labor to live. You know, so we're currently looking at some kind of creative solution on how we can almost have our own little mini campus. You know, a place that hopefully, you know, will be a nice place for people to live. And again, it's, you know, as much as we think this is a great thing that we could be doing for our employees, we're selfishly doing because we think it will benefit our business.
No, well, interesting idea to have a staff housing. It's been there, I think, in the past as well. I remember living there as well when I was a student and then doing my internship. So interesting idea to get that back again. Yeah, fair point. Rob, I see you want to add on this as well, on how you look at talent management.
I think in general, in all of our industry, we came, you know, from a tough year, our comeback year, right? So I think in general, most of the hotels are in a better shape than exactly 1 year ago. But I think what really stands out now is that you realize and understand where you actually kept short, right? We realized, for instance, you know, our consumer or target audience, you know, marketing, you know, was top notch, you know, and maybe we were a bit behind on employer branding. So we worked on that. We launched a career site, launched a new campaigns, basically to echo who we are. And you know, in some places we're more popular. In other places, we need to look, you know, cross-region in our company. But these were one of the things actually we did. But I think we also need to realize that people have different needs these days. I think well-being, you know, well-caring. So we introduced a platform called Open Up, so that people can anonymously, you know, can actually get support if they want it. It's always hard, you know, to go to your people and culture department or even your manager, but we give them the platform that, you know, they can get support if needed, and that is not just, you know, if you have really, you know, serious issues, but also have mindfulness needs, if you like. We hired, you know, a learning and development director in the company because there is way more we can do. So I think it's just a matter of, you know, realizing, have a reality check, you know, what really needed, you know, in the company. That's,
and taking care of your staff.
Absolutely.
That's with the part of the well-being, but really looking out for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting. Alex.
Sure, I'm happy to add. I think we in the luxury sector have probably had a fair reputation of being a little bit stuffy when it comes to talent management. I think, you know, it's been a lot of the white gloves, the black bow tie, you know, everybody looked the same, everybody dressed the same, everybody had the same haircut. But we've really moved away from that now, and now it's about celebrating individuality and really about celebrating personal style. So we've got some of the best people that we have working for us have tattoos from here to here. They have the most amazing beards. They have the most coolest haircuts. And that was just not acceptable many years ago. That was just, you wouldn't even get in the door with that kind of look and feel. But now we celebrate that. We promote that. You know, guests look at that intricate tattoo you have here. That starts a conversation. That builds a relationship. So I think luxury has, fortunately, come a very long way in terms of moving from that classical, you do as you're told, you look as you all look, and that's that, to celebrate who you are. You want to have a particular flourish with the uniform, be my guest. You want to have a particular hairstyle, be my guest. You want to have a particular look and feel, be my guest. And I think that's really a significant move in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Sounds a bit like the democracy we were talking about for our guests as well. It's nice to see those similarities where you actually teach your employees more as you look at your guests.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about different circumstances. They might need different things, be it staff housing, being, well-being, or the opportunity to express themselves. So interesting to look at those differences. Hearing that, I think you as leaders have a role in this as well, right? So how have you yourself actually, going through a tough period? I think the COVID times were tough for all of us, especially in leadership roles. A lot of change happening. You have to adapt all the time. How did you go through that period, and what did you get out of it that changed your leadership in going into these kind of examples that we are talking about? Who would like to start off with that?
I think all these changes, I mean, let's talk a little bit about the pandemic, because I think that's, for me, this was not negative only. It was actually quite positive. You're leaning with your team, right? And you stand shoulder to shoulder. And you also get a better understanding, what is really needed and what it really need to change within the organization. And I think that's important to make it like a common topic. How can we make things better in your company? Mm-hmm. So I have, I think, a great, collaboration with the executive team. We openly talk about, our ambitions and what we need to do next, and what is also, of course, in our power, right? Because a lot, also comes, with monetary funds, and but I think that's most important. That
So you include your direct staff more into.
Yeah, and then the best ideas come on the table, and not everything is achievable, but then at least out of the 10 ideas, if you do, just a few that really are impactful, then
include them to get the better ideas.
Yeah, I think for me the key learning about how I manage my team now is really it's family first, and I think having gone through the COVID experience and now everybody back in the office theoretically, even though we support working from home, it's allowing our team to put their family first. And I can give you a good example. So I have a very fantastic young lady on my team, and she became a mother for the first time last year. And her baby boy has decided now that 4 a.m. is a great time for breakfast. So he's up at 4 a.m. The parents are up at 4 a.m. So this lady on my team, she's up and running by 6 a.m. She's doing emails. She's having calls with Hong Kong at 6:30 in the morning. So she's most effective early in the morning when most of us are still in bed at that point. So we really allowed her to work around her schedule, to work around her family. So it's family first, and then the work life will fit around that. And I think that's worked fantastically for her, and her productivity has shot through the roof because of that. And I think, just allowing and accepting that the classic 9 to 5 workday doesn't apply to all, and you cannot apply it to all. And I think for us, that's been super effective.
Yeah, so more flexibility and looking at what in this case, the team needs to go forward. Yeah. Billy, what would you like to add?
Well, we make everybody start at 6 a.m. But
and at the office, full day, full week at the office.
Listen, I mean, COVID was the most violent exercise that our industry has ever gone through, and I think, if we're honest with ourselves, some groups did better than others. We all made decisions during COVID that we wish we could have done differently, and it was a very tough time to deal with businesses that have so many people in them. I don't think things have changed. I think for me, I always think about the people that are doing the real work in our hotels, right? I fully recognize I have the easy job, right? There are so many people that are working countless hours, that if the person in the kitchen doesn't show up, has to work a double shift, right? That for low wages are making a ton of sacrifice. And we have to listen to these people. We have to empower them. We got to give them, we have people that are very comfortable in their current roles, and we need to make them comfortable in that. We have to provide career progression for people that want to be on that path. So, it's not a once for all solution, but you got to keep listening to the people in your business, and you got to spend time in your hotels, not just with the management team, but the people who are actually doing the work, and really take on board. First of all, their stories give me so much energy. So again, for me, there's nothing that moves me more than the actual people in our hotels, right? That come with the most incredible stories, whether it's their personal lives or some of the things that they've achieved at work. But we need to do something with that, right? We need to listen, and then we need to action. Again, a quick example I'll give you. We've opened a restaurant in one of our hotels called A Beautiful Mess, which we deserve no credit for. This woman who is remarkable started this refugee company a few years ago, and this restaurant is dedicated to employing over 50% of their staff through refugee programs, which obviously is a hot topic right now, but she's doing this for years. And just listening to the people that are working in this restaurant, listening to her and her stories. So we're now, seeing whether we can align ourselves. Again, these are selfish moves. As a business leader, I recognize I'm doing this to try to feed people into the business that are just so motivated to go to work every day. But only by really listening and spending the time in the hotels can you start doing things that are productive with them.
So you're really talking about that connection with the people in the hotel, working in the hotel on the floor, to really listen to them, take their initiatives as well. I can imagine it's good to listen, but you have to finally make the decision. So how do you know what the right decision is then?
Well, first of all, you hope you make more right than wrong decisions, right?
Okay.
We don't always get it right. Let us be clear on that. Doing right by people is actually not that hard, right? If you take the time to put yourself in their shoes, if you really take the time to understand people's personal and professional circumstances, if your heart and your heart are in the right, if your heart is in the right place, clearly you have a business interest to protect. But typically, it isn't as hard as people make it out to be to make the right choices.
Well, it sounds to me like a kind of rational compassion as well, right? I mean, you do care about them, but you also care about the business, and you find a way to put them together, right? To find that connection. Yeah, I see you guys nodding as well, so please add to it.
Well, I think the bright side of it, that people, that are working today in our industry, right? They really made also a decision for themselves, right? To be in hospitality. There are reasons why they're there, and of course we have the monetary component and benefits and everything what is important. But we cannot compete with probably all the industries, right? And I think what we need to do is really to understand why they are with us and give them perspective and horizon, in the career path. And work along that. But I think that's the beauty of it, that there is a reason why they're with us, because they have a choice.
They have a choice, and they're passionate about the industry.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, true.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alex?
I would add, I think another thing where I think luxury has come a long way is that I'm going to use the expression to take a risk on younger talent. It's probably not the right expression, but that's what it is in my mind, is that some of the most senior leaders in our company are actually still in their 30s. So the general managers we have in what is, frankly, humbly speaking, some of the finest hotels in the world, they are still in their 30s, and which I think is very young for a luxury leadership position when you look back at the industry over the years before. So I think what we've also done well is to really foster younger talent, to encourage younger talent, and to then empower them and to give them responsibility That may have been a little bit of an eyebrow-raising exercise a few years ago, but I think that's something where if you have that talent, you want to keep that talent, you also then have to let them show you what they can deliver. And I think even at a younger age, we should be encouraging them.
Yeah, so you're talking about empowerment as well towards younger employees and giving them a chance. Yeah, I must say that I'm very happy to hear all of this compared to, let's say, a few decades back, looking at leadership and looking at leadership now. I see a world of difference. I'm wondering why you guys look at it differently than, let's say, maybe the leaders you had yourself in the past. What made you change your mind to do it this way and not keep on going in the same traditional way of leadership? Would like to say something? Yeah.
I mean, personally speaking, I've been, touch wood, very fortunate just to have had amazing managers myself in my time, and I think, again, young men and women that at the time were given a lot of responsibility. They then paid that on to their team as well, so they were encouraging promotions at a younger age. They were encouraging extra responsibility at a younger age. So fortunately, I think it's a little bit of right place, right time, right mentor. But for me, certainly, that has stuck with me, and I try to do that with my team as well, is to, when there is really talent there, you need to foster that, encourage that, support that. If they're in their 20s, if they're in their 30s, it doesn't matter. I mean, if it's there, it's there. If the personality is there, the rest we can train. So.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I think we're in our industry. We're more focused now on development, And I think in the old days, it kind of, you had an opportunity, or someone asked you, or and I think now we're way more aware that who is around you, what are their strengths, how can I develop them. So then, often you give already the opportunity to a younger generation, and you can let them go. It's if you have the right, coach and guidance around them, if there is a good platform around them, I think that's.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, I'm quite allergic to formalities, so I've never really I've never been part of this old school hotel world. It's never been part of my ecosystem, and I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have fallen in love with this industry if that's where my career would have started. I've been lucky enough. Whether it's mentors, boss, people I've worked with. I've worked with so many people that have inspired me. If I look at our industry now, clearly the sensitivities around design, F&B, embracing local market, all the kind of things that we're hearing time and time again has loosened up our industry a little bit more. But, I hope, certainly the leaders after us realize that what we do is privileged work, I believe. I absolutely love this industry. But let's not fool ourselves, right? We're not saving lives. We're not, we're not doing anything that's changing the world here. We throw the world experience around, and we should, right? I mean, staying in a hotel is a privilege and a special thing to do, but no need to take it that seriously.
Okay, that's I think it's a good round off, not to take it too seriously. Maybe I can imagine there might be questions from the audience as well. Is there anything you would like to ask these leaders?
No.
There.
Yes, hello, my name is Angelique Lombard. You're talking about a sort of stakeholder management, taking care about your employees, about the environment. How are you going to take care of your organizational culture and taking into consideration all the stakeholders?
Yeah, so towards the organizational culture, stakeholders.
Yeah, from an internal culture perspective, I mean, again, we have a council internally within each office, within each hotel, within then the group as a whole at various levels, and those teams work together to promote the culture internally. They work together to promote not just the environment within the office or within the hotel, but to promote, out of work co-curricular activities, whether it's gym memberships for the team, whether it's spinning classes, whether it's morning runs around Vondel Park, these sorts of things. So really we put the power of the people back with the people, if you will, to let them support themselves. And I think for us, that's been the best way to drive it is by the people for the people. And fortunately, we have it's a relatively young company in a relatively flat hierarchy, so we can get things approved and done quickly internally. And really, just giving it to the team, for the team, has worked very well for us.
Anybody want to add on that?
Yeah, I think we're doing that, or doing that through our values, our company values. I mean, we have defined them actually just before COVID, with the team. And I think, COVID was a good time also, to get improved. And I think this is something that we really embrace and that we capitalize on with our managers and our leadership. We can do way more, but this is on the top of our focus list. But the values, our company values, are very important, to use that actually as a departure point to build a culture. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a hot topic in our group, right? I joined the group just under a year ago. Again, this legacy, this amazing legacy of 75 years. And, we're kind of in the process of kind of, reimagining ourselves for the next chapter of this business. So we, culturally, we've had to want to hold on tight to everything that's been great about this hotel group, but introduce a new vision, a slightly different purpose and values to try to achieve our next set of goals as we look moving forward within our group. And the reality is that's not without its bumps in the road, right? That's not an easy thing to do. We're in the heart of it right now. A lot of new leaders joining our company and a lot of new ambitions. But luckily, if you surround yourself with the right people, and that can kind of filter down through the organization, I think in due time, I'm very encouraged about where we're going.
Okay, good. Angelique, I think that's enough answer to your question. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, one more. Hey guys, thank you for a great session. I was just wondering, looking forward in the next 12 to 24 months, what are the most interesting challenges, ahead for you guys?
Good question. Look, I think we've seen at our level of the market post-COVID, I think it's phenomenal performance. Phenomenal. We've had 50% ADR increases in Paris, 30% ADR increases in London, so on and so forth. And I think the challenge is to equally the bottom line has been kind of catching up with that, and so it's not all silver lining. I think the boom in the business, and obviously I think the manpower issue that we've spoken about in terms of getting people back into the properties and finding the right talent, all of the usual hot topics. But for us, it's a little bit about also where the energy markets are going in terms of the utilities costs for the properties. So it's while we've had a bumper 18 months, 2 years now, it's really try and manage that forward as it goes, because as much as we'd love everything to continue at that trajectory, it's probably not going to happen. So again, it's about making sure that we're realistic in our forecasting as well.
If I may, yes. Or?
Yeah, please.
For us, I mean, we worked so hard, over COVID, to work on our pipeline. So we have a lot on the table. We have many openings in the next 24 months. We're going to open 5 hotels, actually, 5 restaurants, and 3 membership clubs, the cover. So obviously that's very important for us, and I think around that also to build that structure. But it's so great to have this pipeline, and that you can also start to think about the whole your organization, your structure around it, what is required, and of course to continue our day-to-day business and not losing the brand focus, and what we basically stand for as a brand. I think that's most important for us now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Billy.
Yeah, I can think of 2 things, right? One is we're embarking on a new journey. We're going to create a new brand out of 3 of our hotels. And, I live and breathe hotels every day, and I can't keep up with the amount of new brands launching in our industry. So, we're going to pay close attention to that and put a lot of energy. We believe in this new concept that we're in the process of putting together. So that's a big goal of ours. But a few days ago, I had a meeting with a lot of the leadership team, and we were talking about all these goals that we've set for 2023. The list is quite long. Some are major goals, some are smaller goals, but all in kind of headed in the direction that we want to head as a hotel group. And the way I broke it down for the team, I said, if you look at the end of the year and you're happy to be here and you're proud to be here, again, probably everything else will take care of itself.
No, nice way of putting it. Good. More questions? No.
Hear me? I actually have a question. You're all representatives, leaders of such beautiful leading hotels, and everyone needs to keep their eye on competitors. And I just wondered, who do you have your eye on? What hotel group, which hotelier inspires you, and you think, yeah, they're doing a great job?
Well, for us, if I may, I think when we find ourselves, our business is a management business, so we compete against other operating companies to win the management of assets which are owned by third parties. At the end of the day, after we've gone through a beauty parade, so to speak, it's typically us and Mandarin Oriental sitting as the last two on the table, again, because we're similar ownership structures, similar heritage, similar geographies, etc. So we find Mandarin, I think I have a lot of respect for what they do in terms of their positioning and their brand. So for us, that would be certainly our biggest competitor.
I think it's a hard question, actually. But yeah. I mean, there are many actually, companies out there. But I think if you look at a portfolio, let's say the boutique portfolio of Ennismore is quite inspiring for us, and we always also have a look at that. And if it comes to experiences, I truly don't really look a lot, about those competition. But it's more like, I always take my inspirations, from smaller places when I go on vacation, and then you really feel, if you stay in small bed and breakfasts, and then you really think, okay, this is really what really matters. That whole personalization, of experiences, and I think that's what we always bring back and try to inspire other people within the company. Yeah.
Millie?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people in our industry that are doing wonderful things, right? It's tough to kind of nitpick who you would view as a competitor or you think people are doing well. I actually really look at things outside of our industry a lot of the time for inspiration, I think. And again, right, going back to what I said at the start, that we're all looking at the hospitality industry with a wider lens in terms of whether we're consumers or not. But, I go to IKEA and I get inspired by how incredibly well organized everything is, right? And what you can learn from that. I can walk into an Hermes store and be like, how have these guys delivered that type of consistency and luxury that hasn't changed in 100 years, and it's still incredible, and you feel incredible just walking in to any of their stores, right? And the list can go on and on and on, right? So I think now that our industry is a lot of the time is more about a bed that you sleep in, there's a lot of places where you can look at places where you can believe there's a competitor or a place to get inspired from.
Yep. So the inspiration is all around us, actually, if I may actually summarize it in that way. Anything else? A question here. Okay, so if I may summarize, so we were talking about going back to basics, but you're also talking about smart technology coming up, and how would you look at smart technology within going back to basics, maybe? Yeah.
So that's another hot topic in our business right now. We are in the process of switching all our hotels with mobile key card, like the ability to check in online and go to your room directly and go into your room with mobile. And a lot of people right away and think about this as, oh, but you're going to take the human element out of the hotel business, right? Because you digitalize the journey of a guest and his ability to go straight to a room. I view it completely the other way around, right? Where I find the check-in process to be the most impersonal, most frustrating part of being in a hotel, right? And I'm like, wow, how amazing if people can check in online and then have such a much more meaningful and genuine interaction with the staff at their own time when they want with something that they need, instead of being required to do something that I don't think any of us particularly enjoy.
Yeah.
So even though, again, there's a time and a place for technology and different groups and hotels are using it differently, I think we now have an opportunity to use technology and automation to provide actually a lot more of the human element that we've been talking about back into the hotels.
And I think that that's a real good round off as well for what we are doing here, that the human element is so important. And that's what we need to keep focusing on in hospitality. So I would like to round off this session and thank Billy, Bram, and Alex, and maybe give them a hand of applause.
Sorry, I stole that answer.
Thank you. We have to round off.